A very good afternoon to all of you. This is Beneath Goswami welcoming you all in a live and interactive session which you are watching at PME Vidya channel number 7 and on our YouTube channels which are NCERT official and NCERT PME Vidya class 7. So today we bring class 7 subject English and the chapter that we are going to cover is quality. What quality is. So it's going to be a very interesting chapter, and to elaborate this chapter, I'm having in the studio as an expert Dr. Amit Ranjan, who is an assistant professor at CIET. Sir, a very warm welcome.
Namaskar.
Namaskar, sir. So before we start this chapter with Dr. Amit, sir, here's a piece of information for all our viewers, and that is if you have any question from us, so you can directly call us on our phone number which is flashing on your screen, and that is 8800440559. With that, if you have any suggestion, if you want to give us any feedback, so you can directly write us on our mail, and our mail ID is dth.class7@ciet.nic.in. With that, as I mentioned, our YouTube channels. So if you're watching us on our YouTube channel, so you can directly ask your questions in the live chat box. So sir, before we start this chapter quality, here I would like to know that what we are going to talk about in the chapter, what are those bullet points over which we are going to put the limelight. Would you please explain us?
Sure. So there are two bullet points, quality and equality.
Okay.
Quality is the quality of boots. So it's the story of a shoemaker who handcrafts the shoes, makes them himself. And the second bullet point that I said is of equality.
Equality.
That these small craftsmen, traditional craftsmen who've been working many years on their craft, which they consider art, cannot compete with the market forces which have big money, big advertising. And so this is a very thought-provoking story, and it's written in 1912. Okay. So even 100 years later, it's more relevant than ever before, of how the big players in the market, how the big companies gobble up the interests of small craftsmen and small businesses.
Yeah, definitely. Quality is any time, any day is important over quantity, and the two words that we have discussed already, quality and equality. So going to discuss about all this as the chapter name itself, quality. So sir, without any delay, I think we should start this.
Absolutely. So this is a beautiful short story by John Galsworthy, who is a British writer, and like I told you, the story is from 1912, and it's in your book, an abridged version of it, Honeydew of class 7. This is chapter 5. So there's an unnamed narrator who keeps going to this shoe shop of one Mr. Gessler, which is at West End. And so like I said, as you can see on your screen, quality is from this collection called Inn of Tranquility from 1912. So this was a quietly distinct shop which had a subtle presence.
Okay.
Gessler brothers shop. So there were two brothers, the elder brother, the younger brother. The younger brother mostly managed the shop on a fashionable London street, like I said, West End. Was understated. So they did not have loud advertisements like we have on shops these days, but just a few pairs of boots hanging on the window and a simple sign saying Gessler's. But their quality was impeccable, which is the second point over here, is that they bespoke of excellence. Mr. Gessler crafted boots only by order, ensuring a perfect fit. And you wouldn't pay him at the shop, he would send you a bill. So there was a whole ritual to the thing. You would go to his shop, he would measure your foot, take measurements like a tailor does, and you collect the shoes, and later he'd send you a bill at your home. His work was mysterious and wonderful, which is to say the kind of boots that he produced. The narrator says that those kind of boots cannot be produced by a factory producer, that they were almost like pieces of art. So the narrator goes on to say he knew the soul of boot.
Definitely. So as we have know the essence of the chapter from Amit sir, subtle presence of the shop and bespoke excellence, that was their perfection in boots, And if we talk about Gessler's brothers, so they were way much perfect in their art. They were way much perfect in their shoemaking. So, sir, it's going to be a very beautiful story as we have already know the essence. So, let's come to the story itself.
Absolutely. So we are in the story. You can see that an expression like "sole of boot" is used by John Galsworthy, and John Galsworthy is known for his art of narration. The way he depicts real life is brilliant. So So I'm reading from the original story. In our book, we have an abridged version, so some lines may be extra over here. But just to see the beauty of narration, how good a writer John Galsworthy is. Here on your screen as well. I remember well my shy remark one day while stretching out to him my youthful foot. Isn't it awfully hard to do, Mr. Gessler? So the narrator at this point of time in the story is 14 years old, and so he puts out his youthful foot for Mr. Gessler to make measurements. And his answer given with a sudden smile from out of sardonic redness of his beard. It is an art, which is, he's saying it is an art. Himself, he was little as if made from leather. And look at the comparison. Like he has been involved for so many years in this work that he has wrinkled and his skin is not youthful any longer. So his skin itself looks like leather. The man and his machine have become one. It's like he himself is made from leather. With his yellow crinkly face and crinkly reddish hair and beard, and neat folds slanting down his cheeks to the corners of his mouth, and his guttural and one-toned voice, for leather is a sardonic substance, and stiff and slow of purpose. And that was the character of his face, save that his eyes, which were grey-blue, had in them the simple gravity of one secretly possessed with the ideal. His brother was also very like him, though watery, paler in every way, with great industry, that sometimes in early days I was not quite sure of him until the interview was over. Then I knew that it was he, if the words "I will ask my brother" had not been spoken, and that if they had, it was his elder brother. So the two brothers are very alike in how they look, and with years of hard work and dedication and remaining in the same room, they speak almost without emotion, and they're almost alike. They look alike and they also work and speak alike. But what I was trying to show over here is the artistry in writing. How accomplished some writers are, not just to bring out the physical features, but the very soul of these two brothers who've been working in this traditional trade for years, and they just believe in it as an art form. So shoemaking for them is art. And there were many shoemaker families in Germany, and so you can see that in surnames also. There are many people who are called shoemaker. Sorry. The Formula One racer, Michael Schumacher, is the same, shoemaker. And so these people are German, and for several generations they were settled in London and making shoes, which they believed was art. So they take care of your toe length, your instep, your ankle, everything, unlike factory produced shoes. So these are very fine, and as we can see from this description, both these brothers are very reserved, inward, introvert people who just go on plodding with their art. And this is the context, dear friends, is of this time, is that the story is written at the turn of the 20th century, in 1912, as we saw. So this is the time of massive industrialization. 1914 is when the First World War started and ended in 1919. So there was massive industrialization in England and across Europe, and lots of people felt very uncomfortable about it, with the pollution, with the environmental damage, with their beautiful lakes and birds gone, replaced by factories. Also people's lives becoming absolutely mundane and boring. What do you do in a factory? There's mechanical production of thousands of goods, and you just stand there operating the machines. So this is all in the backdrop of that. that there is traditional craft, traditional shoemakers, as against factory production, big companies that were coming at this point of time, Bata for example.
Yes, sir, before we move on to next slide, like during your read, what I've noticed, there are two phrases which both of them were said by Mr. Gessler. One is that this is an art, and the way it is written over here, and the another one is I will ask my brother. So in general, we call it and we spell it Brother. So he was born in Germany, living in London, but somewhere the essence of his own language was there, isn't it?
It's absolutely there, and this is the beauty of multiculturalism, in which people of different societies stay and also don't try to eat up each other's language, and which is why these brothers are German, and they also do not mix much with the society. As we can see, they keep working. So they speak English, but they speak with a very thick German accent. It is an art. Ask my brother. No, so Germans can speak English well, but they add
their
the
own
German
essence.
accent to it.
Now, before we move on to another slide, sir, I just want to know the essence of boot. Why their boots are unique, or they were unique in its own self?
So, like I said, they were handcrafted boots, and it was a generational thing. They had learned from several generations to use the right leather, to treat it in the right way, not with harsh chemicals, but with whatever the traditional ways of treating leather were, and to get the measurements like a tailor. Now these days we also buy ready-made clothes. Earlier clothes were tailored, and similarly boots were also tailored. So in the story you would see many instances of the narrator going to the shop, and he's young at the beginning, right? He's 14, and as he grows, every time the shoemaker says, "Oh, your foot has grown a little," as he takes measurements.
Yes.
And we also see in the story that he's very particular about very small things. So once the narrator goes with a factory produced shoe, and he becomes very sad, the shoemaker, and just by looking at the shoe and knowing his client's foot, he says, "It must be hurting you on your little finger." So these kind of tiny details of the size of one's foot, the angle, the shape of one's foot, and all of that so these are master craftsmen, artists, which is why it's different, which is what is in this slide. And because they are so good, and they use durable leather and treat them properly, these boots lasted a long time. Okay. Unlike the factory produced shoes which you wear and they go out of usage, they get torn within a year, they also go out of fashion quickly, right? Like mobiles these days.
Absolutely.
Go out of fashion, and also they cannot handle the software updates and they become outdated in a couple of years. But durability was the USP at this point of time. So Gessler's boots lasted for many years, and which is why the narrator would go every few years, and which is why even though he's very fond of these shoemakers, he doesn't go every 6 months or 3 months or something like that, because even the repairs that Gessler would do would last for years. So in the story we see several jumps. He goes after 2 years, he goes after 3 years. So by the time the story ends, the narrator, who starts at 14, is almost 22, 23. Also a very interesting thing, observation that the narrator makes is entering his shop felt like entering a church, and that's the most powerful part of this story, to compare a shoe shop with a church. No? As you generally keep footwear outside the temple.
Exactly.
Thinking that this is a lowly thing, this is made of leather, this is dirty, and Galsworthy does a flip on it and says that this was like entering a church where there was calm and quiet with people worshipping. That these two shoemakers, the Gessler brothers, were almost in meditation and praying to some god to make their shoes. They were so dedicated to it. And the customers as well, like in a church you go and wait patiently, pray patiently. The customers would sit in a chair and wait patiently on a wooden chair. Right. So Galsworthy describes this as you can read on our screen. So I'm reading some excerpts to give a flavor of the story. So one went in not as into most shops in the moods of please serve me and let me go. So that's our attitude, isn't it? When we go to a shop, we walk in, we want to buy our things, we expect a salesman to show the things and go. But restfully as one enters a church and sitting on a single wooden chair waited, for there was never anyone there. So there was nobody there, and you would have to wait till one of the brothers would show up because they are working. So only when they finish a portion of their work will they attend to you. Soon over the top edge of that sort of well, rather dark and smelling soothingly of leather, which formed the shop, there would be seen his face or that of his elder brother peering down, a guttural sound and the tip-tap of brass slippers beating the narrow wooden stairs. Look at the way he's recreated the scene of day-to-day life, how your slippers tap on the wooden stairs. And he would stand before one without coat, a little bent in leather apron in his work clothes, with sleeves turned back, blinking as if awakened from some dream of boots, or like an owl surprised in daylight and annoyed at this interruption. What a beautiful description. Like an owl surprised in daylight and annoyed at this interruption. So this is what makes a great writer, these kind of metaphors. Like owl is comfortable only at night, and similarly the Gessler brothers are working in the inside room, working on their shoes, and they're not used to coming out and meeting people. So the comparison, the metaphor of owl surprised by daylight and annoyed at this interruption. So they were so dedicated to their work.
True.
So the story goes on, and mostly the story is in the genre of what we call realism, which you will study later. But roughly, realism is where we try to capture life as it is, a slice of life, as they say, and which is why these beautiful descriptions of mundane day-to-day routine life. So how would the ordering of the shoe would be done? So the descent, Mr. Gessler appeared blinking as if from a boot dream, as we just saw, and he'd be wearing his leather apron, and then he would return with a gold brown leather piece. So he'd show you which kind of leather do you want. So everything is made from the scratch. You do not just go and buy. You choose your leather, whether you want the sooty variety of leather, the shiny variety, the matte finish, or whatever. Admiring its beauty, then he would ask when they were needed. Then like a tailor would ask you, how quickly do you need it? And if delayed, he consulted his brother. Then the customer was thanked and sent on their way. So if I cannot match your expectation of giving the ready boots to you on such and such day, he would consult his brother and would either say yes or no. So these are all descriptions of. So once what happens, this narrator goes after a couple of years with a shoe and says, Mr. Gessler, my shoe is creaking. And no, it's a general complaint that you would go to any shoe shop and say there's this and this problem. Now, this was a great affront. He took offense. He just could not imagine, Mr. Gessler, that there would be something wrong with his shoe. So he said, did you wet them? Did you walk in the rain and the shoes got wet before the leather was ready? So the leather takes time in the sun to mature, and so did you wet the leather, and which is why it went bad. And then the narrator said, no, actually I did not. And then he was even more shocked and puzzled, and he said there's some shoes which are wrong from the birth. So he treats shoes like children, like human beings. So he says there's some where there's a problem at the birth itself. And then he said, you return the shoes and I'll take them off the bill. So very expensive leather shoes, and you merely went and complained that the shoe is creaking.
Creaking.
And he couldn't believe that his workmanship, his artistry could have any fault. So he said, I'll return your money if that is the case. So that was his kind of integrity, as we can see on the slide as well. So if irreparable, he'd remove the charge. Honesty and quality were paramount to him. So integrity, honesty and quality. And these are some values that we must learn in life to have integrity to our profession and in our relationships. So there's integrity and honesty in Mr. Gessler's making of the shoes, that he's completely committed to making the right shoe, and he's completely honest with his customer that if he's made a mistake, he will take it back. Which are qualities largely missing
in today's time.
In today's time, where you are told that there are no guarantees, there are no warranties.
Exactly.
So once what happened, so this is how the story proceeds in parts. Once what happened is the narrator goes with boots from a large firm, and of course he is an artist, Mr. Gessler, so he immediately recognizes and he says, those are not my boots. He says that the big firms do not have any self-respect, and that they prioritize advertisement over quality, which is something we know too well in today's world, that there is a huge gap between what is advertised and what you get. Right? So I'll quickly read this one extract also. Once I went absent-mindedly into his shop in a pair of boots bought in an emergency at some large firms. He took my order without showing me any leather, and I could feel his eyes penetrating the inferior integument of my foot. At last he said, those are not my boots. The tone was not one of anger, nor of sorrow, nor of contempt. So he's not angry, he's not sorrowful, he's not even contemptuous, but something that quite froze the blood. He's seeing that times are completely changing, that these factories are going to take over. He put his hand down and pressed a finger on the place where the left boot, endeavoring to be fashionable, was not quite comfortable. It hurts you there, he said. So he says it hurts you there. Merely by looking at the shoe and knowing his customer, he knows that the make of the shoe is not comfortable for the foot. Those big worms, they have no self-respect. These big firms have no self-respect. Trash. And then, as if something had given way within him, he spoke long and bitterly. It was the only time I ever heard him discuss the conditions and hardships of his trade. They get it all, he said. They get it by advertisement, not by work. So the big companies make it by advertisement, not by work. They take it away from us who love our boots. It comes to this, presently I have no work. Every year it gets less, you will see. And looking at his lined face, I saw things that I had never noticed before. Bitter things, bitter struggle, and what a lot of grey hairs there seemed to be suddenly in his red beard. So the story continues in this way. And next time the narrator goes, his elder brother has died, and he looks as old as his elder brother. The next time he goes after 2 years, it looks like this man has aged 15 years. And out of guilt, he orders a lot of shoes. And the next time he goes, within a week after getting a bill, he sees that a new manager is there, and he tells that old Mr. Gessler has died. I said, how did he die? And the new man says that, oh, he died of starvation. What does that mean? Like he wasn't a beggar to have starved, but because of the big factories, his business was getting smaller and smaller. And also, he would not tolerate workers who were shoddy at their work, so he did everything himself. He would not give himself time to work. He was so dedicated to his art, and that's how he died of making shoes.
Definitely. I mean, if you talk about Gessler's brothers, so they were so fond of with the work they do, the art they had, the boot making and the shoe making art they had, but at the same time, like they were bond and they are fond of quality but equality, like the advertisement took them took them away.
So basically, there are two things in this chapter. The message of the writer. One is the message of honesty and integrity,
Exactly.
and integrity of purpose to whatever you do in life. That you should have that quality. And secondly, it shows how globalization, how the big market, the big players, the big businesses, big companies are taking over the livelihoods of multiple artisans and craftsmen in our country also, basket makers, weavers, puppeteers, toy makers. Well, there are big companies coming making toys, so who will care for these wooden toys made in some small village in Odisha or Telangana? So it is food for thought, and we must promote and protect these small artisans by endorsing their goods and also acknowledging their hard work, and also learn to have integrity like them in our own lives.
That's why we have a campaign of vocal for local. It's very important to endorse our own
Absolutely.
products. It's very important to feed these people, to give them something to rely on, because as Gessler's brothers, they actually starved. They were actually struggling to get food, but they were very honest with their work. They were very honest with their craft. And thank you so much, Amit sir, for elaborating this beautiful chapter to all of us. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we wrap up this session with you, here's an important announcement, and that is about Paricharcha with our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi. We are excited to announce that this year edition brings a fresh perspective with 7 upcoming episodes featuring distinguished personalities across various fields. These sessions will cover essential topics including mental health, technology and finance, nutrition and mindfulness, aimed at guiding students in their journey of learning and personal growth. Here's a video. Let's take a look.
परीक्षा पे चर्चा के 8th एडिशन के नए अंदाज में हो चुकी है शुरुआत। प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने स्टूडेंट्स को दिए एग्जाम और लाइफ से जुड़े वैल्यूएबल टिप्स। आगे इस चर्चा से जुड़ेंगे अलग-अलग फील्ड्स के एक्सपर्ट्स जैसे दीपिका पादुकोण, मैरी कॉम, फूड फार्मर, सदगुरु इत्यादि, जो 7 नए एपिसोड्स में एडवाइस देंगे मेंटल हेल्थ, न्यूट्रिशन एंड वेलबींग के बारे में। तो देखना ना भूलें 12 फरवरी से रोज सुबह 10 बजे डीडी न्यूज और नरेंद्र मोदी यूट्यूब चैनल पर।
So all you need to do is just tune in from 12th to 15th February 2025 at 10 a.m. with all Doordarshan channels if you want to watch this live, and don't miss out on these invaluable insights. But now it's time to wrapping up this session. But before we wrap up this session with you, here's a schedule that what we have, like what we are going to show you on the NCERT official. Let's take a look. After the session, you'll be joined by our another expert, which will teach you class 7th social science, and the topic that we are going to cover is Hamari Prithvi Ke Andar. And we are going to wrap up our day with our 5 p.m. session, which is of Sahyog, and the topic that we are going to cover is overcoming perfectionism. But now it's time to take a leave from my side. This is Manodarpan Goswami signing off. All you need to do is just stay tuned with NCERT official. Take care of yourself, and thank you for joining us once again. Namaskar.